Good morning. Welcome to All Souls. I'm Marlin Lavanhar.
And I'm Randy Lewis, and on behalf of the entire worship team, we welcome you this morning.
We want to especially welcome people from, well, actually, because of the weather, almost all of us are everywhere members today. We are worshiping online. We're so glad that we have this technology to be able to do this, and we're glad that you tuned in and that we can be together like this.
And if you're joining us for the first time, we welcome you as well. And now, join us for our invocation and covenant. This is indeed a day not of our own making. Let us rejoice in it and be glad. Let us count our many gifts. Let us be grateful for the capacity to see, feel, hear, and understand. Let us be grateful for the incredible gift of life. And let us be especially grateful for the ties of love that bind us together, giving dignity, meaning, worth, and joy to all our days.
Let us join in the All Souls Covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Welcome to All Souls, where we love beyond belief. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, a tradition to which this church is a part.
And today, our chalice is being lit by our new music director, Dr. Randall Hooper. Randy, if you would come forward and light our chalice, we appreciate it.
We light this chalice, spark of the original fire of creation, to remind us that we are all on this planet, the furried, the feathered, the finned, and the scaled, along with us featherless bipeds. We are all made of the same star stuff and all share a common destiny. We are inextricably intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent, and it is good.
Good morning. I'm Nicole Kirk, the program minister here at All Souls, and I get to tell you the story for all ages. It's called Mira and the Big Story by Laura Allery, illustrated by Sue Todd, and adapted by our very own Shannon Boston. Today's story is about a little girl named Mira, who grew up hearing marvelous stories about how her people were given their land by the mighty King of Heaven, who had taken pity on her homeless ancestors and sent an enormous bird to gather rocks and pile them into mountains and to claw the earth and make a channel that was filled with rainwater and became the river on whose banks they lived. But across the river, a different story was told. There were villagers who believed that the Queen of Earth had sent giant turtles to carry her favorite people to this place, and it was her gift to them. Day after day and year after year, the people on both sides of the river looked at each other with distrust and suspicion. Mira was raised to believe that the others were enemies, that the river valley belonged to her people, and that the others did not belong. But Mira was very curious about the others, and she would watch. Finding narrow places in the river where she could get close, she noticed how similar they were to her people, how kind they were to one another, and the stories about them being different just didn't make sense. So she took her questions to the wisest person in her village, old Alfred. She told Alfred about her secret trips to the river and all that she had noticed. And Alfred asked, "So, what is your big question?" And in a small voice, Mira said, "Are our stories wrong?" Alfred took a deep breath. And then he said, "Let me tell you something about stories. Stories can make you bigger, not on the outside, of course, but on the inside. They can stretch your mind and your heart. But a story can make you smaller if it takes all the space in your mind and heart. When new people or new ideas come along and there is no room for them, you must ask yourself, is my story making me bigger or smaller?" Our village is dear to me, Mira, but our minds and our hearts need to be stretched so we can make room for others. Mira felt very confused. What kind of story could be big enough for everybody, she asked. "I have a story," replied Alfred. "Would you care to hear?" Mira agreed, and so old Alfred began. "In the beginning there was nothing, yet there was everything. Imagine holding a seed in the palm of your hand. Now, imagine something even smaller than that containing everything that exists. It was there, but it was not yet there, the way a bright sunflower is not inside the striped seed. Now imagine a light, not an ordinary light like from candles. This light was pure energy. Out of it came unimaginably small bits of matter that came together and formed stars. Over ages and ages, the stars burned, vast furnaces forging new things deep in their hearts. When the time came for them to die, the stars exploded. All the stuff inside them was scattered into space. It drifted like dandelion fluff on the wind, ready to start something new. From that stardust came everything: clouds and comets, whales and wildebeests, rattlesnakes and redwoods, dinosaurs and dragonflies. And from that stardust came galaxies and solar systems and a little blue planet called Earth, and a valley and a river and 2 villages, and an old man named Alfred and a little girl named Mira. We all come from the same place, and we are all made of the same stuff. Mira felt like her mind and heart were so full they could burst. "If this story is true," she cried, "then no one owns the valley, and we all belong here. If this story is true, the people across the river are not others, they are like us. If this story is true, we are all connected to each other and to everything else: the river, the trees, the sky, the ocean, the animals. If this story is true, we have wasted so much time, too much time, being enemies." Mira began to cry. Old Alfred said gently, "Mira, tell me what's in your heart." "What about our stories?" Mira sobbed. What about the bird who led us to the valley and the King of heaven? Dear child, answered old Alfred, you asked me a big question. Now I will ask you some. Who dreamed everything when there was nothing? Who lit the first stars? Who made you so wonderfully curious? Mira, you have not lost your gift, or the one who gave it. Both are just so much greater than you ever dreamed. So, asked Alfred, what do you think of the story? What does it do to you? Mira took a deep breath, and she realized she felt bigger inside. I like your story, she told old Alfred with a moonlit smile. I think it's big enough for everyone. And so ends our story for all ages.
Today we honor the sacredness of life, the mystery that surrounds our lives. We are grateful to have this community that accompany us in times of sorrow, in times of joy, in times of peace. This morning, we light a candle and hold space for those in our community recovering from illness, in hospitals, on hospice, facing new or continued health challenges, including Patricia Lavanhar, my mother, Valerie Lewis, we light a candle in celebration of member Jean Ann Fowler, who will receive the Governor's Award in recognition of her longtime leadership and significant contributions to the arts across Oklahoma. I invite you now to name aloud someone you wish to be included in this sacred moment. I light a final candle for all the names spoken and those still held in our hearts. If you've lost a loved one over the past year, or if this Sunday is the closest to the anniversary of a loved one's passing, I invite you now to rise as you are able for a brief moment of silence before the prayer. You may be seated. God, Spirit of life and love, we bring what is broken in us and what is breaking around us. We feel creation groaning, unfinished, unsettled, crying out. Oh God, be present with us now. Be strength when despair presses in. Be tenderness when anger burns. Some of us today are carrying grief too heavy for words. Grief for lives lost. Grief for trust broken. grief for cities like Minneapolis and a nation aching again. Remind us that chaos is not the final word. Hold us as we mourn. Guide us as we repair. Strengthen us as we stand for justice. Stir in us the courage to keep creating a world where dignity is honored and life is treated as sacred. Oh God, may hope rise in this moment, in this hour. And may we trust that even now, creation lives and has not stopped. May it be so. Amen and blessed be.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Sing it with me now. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
And now we're going to sing together the song, Where Do We Come From? You'll find the words on your screen.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? And you know, Dr. Hoop, it also says mystery, right?
Mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery.
We hope you sing along at home or wherever you are. Let's do this. Are you ready? Here we go. Thank you, David. Here we go. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going?
Somebody can sing that.
Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Mystery,
Come from?
mystery.
Where are we?
Life is a riddle and a
we
mystery.
going?
Mystery,
Come from?
mystery.
Where are we?
With a riddle and a
we
mystery.
going? Where do
Mystery,
we come from?
mystery.
Where are we?
Life is a
Where
riddle
are
and
we
a mystery.
going? Where do
Mystery,
we come from?
mystery.
Where are we?
Life is a
Where
riddle
are
and
we
a mystery.
going?
Everybody,
Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we?
Where are we going? Where do we come
Where
from?
are we?
Where are we going? your part.
going?
Mystery.
Where do we come from?
Mystery.
Where are we?
Life is
Where
a
are
riddle
we
and a mystery.
going? Where are
Mystery.
we come from?
Mystery.
Where are we?
Life is a
Where
riddle
are we
and a mystery.
going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going?
Last week when I wasn't feeling well, I went to urgent care because I wanted to make sure I didn't have COVID or flu or something else that I was going to transmit to everybody. And so I mentioned to the physician's assistant who was taking care of me that I'm a minister. And so I didn't want to be shaking 600 people's hands and spreading something to everybody. So that's why I wanted to know. So at the end of the visit, the physician's assistant asked me, "So what are you preaching on this Sunday?" And I told him. I explained that there's a creation story that tells how you and I and everything got here, that is not fixed, that changes and grows as we learn, and it does not discount or oppose any of the other creation stories, like those in the Bible, or the ones from Native American cultures, or from the religions of Asia. And it helps us to understand, actually, and to affirm all of those other creation stories. Well, this is Oklahoma. And I had thought incorrectly that because he was a man of science, that he would resonate with this idea. Well, it turns out that is not the case. He is an evangelical Christian who believes that his faith story, his faith's creation story, and his scriptures are the one and only true story. And any other scriptures, any other creation stories that tries to describe how we got here differently are wrong and corrupt and false. Maybe they're derivative from that original and correct one, but none of them, except his, is true. Well, I tried my best to explain that we have a creation story that is at least as miraculous and awe-inspiring as the story of the Garden of Eden. No talking snakes, but a lot of other things that would blow your mind. I tried to explain that if the people and the religions and the cultures all over the world are all in competition for who has the one and only right truth, whose religion is the right story, and each needs to prove the others are wrong, then we will continue to have centuries-long divisions and misunderstandings between peoples and cultures, which we have seen throughout human history. But our generation knows something that almost no other generations before us knew. And so we have come to a time in human history when we can finally put aside the competition over religions and religious origin stories and religious scriptures and begin to appreciate what is good in all of them. I explained that I will be sharing a way of looking at the origin of all existence that allows all religion stories to remain true if understood in the proper context. In the end, he didn't buy it, but I'm hoping that you will. Keep in mind that there are literally thousands of creation stories from thousands of different cultures and religions. It's no surprise that the creation stories here in North America include things like buffaloes and rabbits and deer. Creation stories in the Middle East describe sheep and shepherds and pharaohs. Well, in East Asia, we find stories involving elephants and monkeys and lotus flowers. Why is this? Because the stories were written by the people living in those regions. And those are the things that they knew. Those are the things that they could see all around them. North America didn't have elephants and tigers or monkeys. So each story is limited to the knowledge and the experiences of the people who wrote them, and by the flora and the fauna that was around them. The Jewish and the Christian scriptures don't mention dinosaurs, for example, because people didn't know about dinosaurs or even the true age of the earth when those scriptures were written. One of the most bizarre moments in my ministry was when there was a major public debate in Tulsa about putting a Christian creationism exhibit alongside the exhibit that we have that describes evolution in the Tulsa Public Zoo. This debate, in this debate, we had some very strong Christian evangelical voices speaking on behalf of putting up this creationism exhibit. And when we asked them about dinosaur bones and other fossils that we now have and how that could possibly be compatible with a 6,000-year-old earth, the man said, "We all know that God planted those things in the earth in order to test our faith." The problem with believing in various religious creation stories as fact is that in order to believe them, people have to come up with tortured answers such as that when new information comes to light through discoveries and science. And sure enough, my physician's assistant, who I was talking to, rationalized the idea of a 6,000-year-old planet by saying that, well, he believed that the planet was older than 6,000 years, but that human history began 6,000 years ago. Friends, what humanity now has is a creation story that allows us to understand where we came from and who we are and where we're going. Because what's new in our lifetimes of the people in this congregation, is that we're basically the first to know that we actually came from stardust. Literally, the atoms that make up our bodies came from the stars. The stars are our ancestors. We know that all the hydrogen that exists in the universe was created 13 billion years ago. Our bodies are over half H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, which means that a large percentage of the atoms in our bodies are 13 billion years old. And you were feeling old before I started talking this morning. Now, we know now that all the carbon and the oxygen around us and in us was formed from exploding red giant stars. We are made of star stuff. The images that we saw on the screen earlier in this service from the James Webb and Hubble telescopes those are family photos. As my late colleague, Forrest Church, used to say, the world was pregnant with us from the very beginning. All the raw materials that existed in the first moment of creation. And all of it has been forming and reforming itself over billions of years. The hydrogen and other atoms in your body were once in dinosaurs. And who knows what other amazing parts of creation these atoms once belonged to. Now, these atoms have come together in this special way to create you and me. As my late colleague and friend, Reverend Michael Dowd, said, you and I are not separate from the universe. We are an expression of the universe. He explained that when the first man floated above earth and looked down at earth, it was not man looking at earth. It was the first time that earth became complex enough to be able to push a piece of itself far enough away that earth could look back on itself. We are not separate from nature and the earth. We emerged out of nature and the earth and the stars. Nature has been growing in complexity from the beginning of time. And only recently has it become complex enough to be aware of where we came from and how this all began. For the first time, we are aware of ourselves and understand that we are part of the whole of existence. We are earth looking in the mirror. Creation finally has become conscious of itself. The cosmologist and author Brian Swimme says 4 billion years ago the earth was molten rock, and now it sings opera. The story, it doesn't have a talking snake. Instead, it has all of creation talking through us. When the Bible says in Genesis 2, chapter 7, that Adam was formed from the earth, it's an early understanding of the fact that we emerged out of the earth. According to Swimme, you take a great cloud of hydrogen gas and you just leave it alone. And in time, it becomes rose bushes, giraffes, and human beings. I've read a lot of creation stories, but the story of evolution has to be the greatest creation story of them all. It has the potential to be the unifying story of creation for all people everywhere. Think of it this way. We now have the scientific story of creation because we now have powerful telescopes and microscopes and computers and decades of data. And there are also the various cultural creation stories that have been created around the world that have helped people of various cultures and various languages to make sense of the world before we had all that technology and possibility and capacity. Before, people knew why snakes don't have legs, and why rabbits have such short tails, and why the moon waxes and wanes. People of every tribe and culture came up with an explanation and different explanations. And so now, if people can finally accept evolution as the physical and the factual creation story, a story that changes when we get more information and we learn more, when we find new fossils and discoveries, the story adapts to include them. It doesn't have to rationalize why the scriptures don't mention this or that, which has now been discovered. Suddenly, all the other religions and the cultural stories no longer have to be in competition for which one is the true and right story. In one sense, they're all valid in that they are cultural expressions that are filled with rich stories and wisdom and poetry and values. They've inspired beautiful art and ways of being. The great creation story called evolution is still being told, and we're a part of it. And it transcends cultural differences and religious affiliations. This story was not given to one people only, in one time, in one place, in one language. It's truly the story of all humanity and all animals and plants and stars. Amazingly, what we're talking about, this stuff about the carbons and the atoms and the oxygen atoms and coming from great giant stars has only been known for about 75 years. So we are some of the first human beings to know with certainty about our connection to the stars. A scientist and a friend of mine, Connie Barlow, she reminds us, for ages, people thought the stars were pinpricked holes in the firmament in the sky, that through which the light of God shined through at night. But as the first generation to have the James Webb telescope, we can see galaxies that are over 12 billion years old. What's crazy is that we're not even seeing them as they are now. We're seeing them as they looked 12 billion years ago. We know now that when we look up at the North Star, that it could have burned out in the 14th century, and news of it just hasn't reached us yet. We know now that the light from the closest star in the night sky, Alpha Centauri, when it reaches our eyes, began its journey 4 years ago. That's the closest star. It takes 4 years at the speed of light to arrive in our eyes. Some of the farthest ones that we can see with our naked eye began their journey more than 1 million years ago. As far as we know, they could be long gone. When we consider the incredible vastness in the universe, it makes us humble. It should anyway. It reminds us how ridiculous it is for people to argue over whose ancient scripture contains the one and only complete truth of existence for all times and all peoples. We know now that there are millions of stars in the sky for every one person on the planet. So if we multiply millions of stars by the billions of people, this universe is extraordinary and huge. And here we are on this tiny little blue marble that's floating around in infinite space, and you and I are merely infinitesimal specks of dust who live for an incredibly short amount of time, especially in cosmic sense. And we can find ourselves fighting and even killing and shunning one another over whose ancient story explains it all perfectly and correctly. It's ridiculous. What's so liberating and hopeful about the evolutionary story is that it's also humble in that we know that we don't have it all figured out. And importantly, it doesn't claim that any one group is chosen or any one group is saved. And the question of God, it's neither denied or confirmed by the story of evolution. So there's room in the story for agnostics, as well as theists and mystics and skeptics, as well as believers and seekers of all kinds. But we can't propose this idea without addressing the major fear of religious fundamentalists of all kinds. There's a fear that if people start believing in science, they will stop believing in God. And if they stop believing in God, that they're afraid that people will become immoral and injustice and violence will become the norm. First of all, these religions have been around for centuries, and despite people's belief in God, and often because of it, we have seen a lot of wars and a lot of domination and oppression and violence and injustice. So belief in God and religion has certainly not rid the world of violence and injustice. So let's look at how evolution can actually lead to a more peaceful, moral, equitable world. I can think of 3 ways. First, evolution teaches us that we are part of the whole of existence. We are utterly dependent on and interconnected. with all life. Knowing this, it leads people to be more caring for the environment, which is indeed a part of us and a part of the whole. For all life is all connected, and we are all one. And that's it's a reason to respect life and to care for the planet and to care for one another. Now, second, through the story of evolution, we can see ourselves as co-creators. As human beings, we create governments and buildings and bridges and the internet and poetry and churches and children and gas chambers and implements of torture and weapons of mass destruction and cluster bombs and mass graves. We have the power to create things that support life and dignity, as well as things that destroy life and demean other people's dignity. It's an incredible responsibility. We are not just participants in this life and in this story. We help to co-create the world that we live in. And third, the story of evolution is the story of increasing cooperation. The way that exploding stars turn into people who love and who learn and who sing is the story of how at each stage of development, those parts of existence that learn to cooperate with others in more and more complex structures and ways are the ones that survived. So imagine the time when all that existed initially were single-cell organisms. Then there was some change in the climate, in the temperature, or some other change in the level of oxygen or gases in the environment. And certain single-cell organisms that lived fine before, all of a sudden had to bond together with other ones in order to survive in this new environment. And the ones that learned to connect and combine survived. And many of the ones that didn't died off. Now this happened over and over again, over billions of years. And as various changes happen within the environments here on this planet. There were leaps forward in terms of more and more complex examples of atoms and organisms joining together and cooperating and become something new. We can see it also in human societies, how this happened. First, there were families, and then people bonded together in clans, and clans bonded together into tribes, and eventually into nations and nation states. So these different ways that human communities continue to create more complex formations and ways to be together in order to cooperate, in order to survive. Well, what evolution calls us to do is to cooperate at higher and higher levels as a means of survival. So in modern history, nations have been forming into multinational bodies like NATO and the European Union and the United Nations. More and more space exploration has been done together with nations not competing but working together to do it. These have been really good signs for humanity that we're developing more and more cooperation in the world. And this is my big argument against the current American policies that are taking out of and away from a lot of these multinational organizations, treaties, and different groups. My objection, it's not just historical or political or sociological. I have this well-considered worldview that's based in 14 billion years of science and nature that explains that the way that species survive and thrive and evolve is through cooperation in more and more complex forms. So, despite the fears of fundamentalists that people believing in evolution will destroy religion and it will lead to chaos and injustice, evolution could finally help end the conflicts between religions and help preserve what is good in each religion. Evolution also calls us to care for one another and the earth because we are all one. Evolution reminds us that we are co-creators who have the ability and therefore the responsibility to create a world of peace. And it encourages us to work towards greater and greater cooperation as a means of survival. Because the story has been consistent. Organisms that continue to grow in cooperation and complexity survive. And this is good news. And as one of the first generations to know it, we need to spread the word. You are the universe expressing itself. So in this new year of 2026, how will 14 years of evolution express itself through you?
And now we ask you to join with us as we sing together For the Beauty of the Earth. You'll see the words on your screen.
For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. Source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of here and nigh, for the heart of mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, making sense to sound and sight. Source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour, of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light. Source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild. Source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
That was a wonderful sermon, and I'm so glad that we have been together today. The Lindsay House is the recipient of our offering this morning. The picture of homelessness is always not very clear. Every family has a different circumstance. Lindsay House is an organization that serves women and children who are experiencing situational homelessness. They offer support that strengthens the entire family. One of our All Souls traditions is giving our plate away every Sunday to an organization doing something in the community that is helping other people, doing good works in the world. So in order to participate in our offering this Sunday, text LOVE BB, in other words, love beyond belief. So text LOVE, LOVEBB, to 73256, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. You can also visit our website, allsoulschurch.org/give. Please give generously. Lindsay House needs our support. And please join us next Sunday for our special guest, the Reverend Dr. Will Gaffney. Dr. Gaffney is a professor at Bright Divinity School down in Texas, a leading scholar of the Hebrew Bible, an Episcopal priest, and just a fabulous human being, a powerful speaker. You're not going to want to miss that service. Again, Dr. Gaffney will be preaching at the 10 a.m. service. And later that afternoon, Dr. Gaffney will be the 39th annual Knippa Interfaith Lecturer. And so folks are invited to join us for that lecture series later in the afternoon. Reverend Randy will be preaching at our 11:30 service. Now, last announcement, I just want to let you all know that we have a few spots available for our whole live sexuality training, especially for the elementary age classes. If you are interested in becoming an OWL facilitator for this age group, and if you can attend that 3-day training, please contact Shannon Boston via email today. There's so much happening here at All Souls. Check out our website. And now we receive our offering gratefully for the Lindsay House.
Friends, I'm so glad we could get together. I'm so glad we have the technology so that no matter what the weather's like, we can be in each other's presence in this way. I hope you feel the love of this place, the awe of being a part of this incredible creation, expressing itself through us in all these unique ways. As you go forth into this day, into this week, may your eyes see beauty, may your lips speak truth, may your heart know love, and may your hands do the good works of this world all the days of your life, and until we meet again. Go and be blessed and be a blessing.